Now, you're very welcome back to the show. It's Richie here with you this evening, and joining us in studio this evening as well, I'm delighted to say, is Sean Lander. Sean, you're very welcome to the show, because the issue of cycling safety and all of that has been to the fore, and particularly with yourself in very, very tragic circumstances over the past 12 months as well. May 27th of last year, Sean's partner Gabriele Glodenyte passed away after an accident on a back road while out cycling with Sean. First of all, our heartiest condolences to you. Hope you're dealing with the situation and what happened last May as best you can. And thank you so much for coming in for sharing your story, which I know you've done with a couple of our colleagues already. But give us a sense of Gabrielle and what kind of a person she was. How you met, first of all, and how that relationship blossomed.
Yeah, we actually met in school. We went to the same school together. And yeah, we just basically started our relationship then. We went to different colleges. She went to Trinity and she studied management science and information system studies, so she got that through like a fantastic leaving cert, 600 points.
Wow.
Yeah, she was a real brain box when it comes to academics. And yeah, like we continued our relationship together. It was in COVID, kind of when the lockdowns happened in 2020, and she kind of picked up on a bit of cycling, initially just for pleasure, and she kind of took part in some local races that run here in Dublin with a group of women, and she kind of progressed through the ranks of them, and she basically just got bit by the cycling bug. She went on then to compete at national level. She did races abroad, Belgium, Netherlands, and she kind of progressed to be basically one of the top women in the country. And in 2022, she was a level above the way she was ever before, and she just, she'd be the favourite going into most races. She'd be the one to watch, and a lot of the other girls would be looking at her to watch. She won some of the biggest races that we have here in the country, and she won the overall series of what's called the National Road Series, which is like a collection of the kind of most important races that are done out. But yeah, she was an amazing person, really, very talented both on the bike and off the bike. So
she seemed to be something of a prodigy in pretty much everything she touched. Like you touched upon there, like 600 points in the leaving. She was getting A's in English when English essentially was her second language to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I remember, because we would have been in the same year in school, and she would have been helping me with my leaving cert English papers, you know what I mean? It's just funny like that.
Yeah. Just even seeing the way her face lights up talking about her as well kind of speaks volumes of the esteem that she was held in. It was like you had gotten her involved with cycling. You were the one who would have been out on the bike most days as well.
Yeah, she kind of just saw me doing it when, we were stuck in our kind of 2 kilometre lockdown, and we were doing a lot of cycling and the indoor cycling thing, and she saw me do it and she just wanted to give it a go, and then it became a way for us to hang out as well then, we'd cycle together and do a training together.
Yeah, and that's what you were out doing on the 27th of May of last year as well, was cycling together.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I don't know how comfortable you are about speaking about the day and about the incident. If you want to stop, by all means, you can always let me know, but it seems to me that you were out, she was on ahead of you on the road, was it? And
yeah, so I just stopped for a moment on the side of the road, and she just went on ahead, and yeah, it was such a harmless day, you know what I mean? It was just it was actually one of the first sunny days, really kind of warm days of the year, and we were just out for a spin. It was lunchtime, Saturday lunchtime, and when I was catching back up with her, I turned the corner and I saw her bike, and it was crushed. Never seen a bike broken in so many places. A car with a big dent in the front of it. The windscreen was smashed, and the kind of scary part of all of that was that she was nowhere to be seen. And it's kind of it's hard to even remember exactly what happened, and even my memory of the whole event is sort of in pieces as well. But like, I just remember first of all thinking that, like, you know, like there's been a bike crash. Like, I've crashed myself. I've fallen off. I've been in crashes in races. She's been in crashes in races. She's been in crashes with traffic, and you didn't really think anything, you know, of it. Like, and in hindsight, when I think back and I think of the state of the car and her bike, I think, well, how did I not know something more serious was happening? But I didn't, and I started calling for her name because, as I said, her body was nowhere to be found, and I was just like looking for her, and she actually was quite far away from the bike in the end. And you know, it was good 20-30 seconds of calling her name before I saw her, and she was upside down in the ditch, and you know, her body in not a nice way, you know, twisted, neck twisted. She had quite serious wounds, and I probably didn't even fully kind of comprehend how bad it was even at the time. I just jumped in the ditch, and I didn't even, like, at that point I didn't even think anything fatal had happened here, and I just wanted to pick up her hand and just tell her, like, oh, everything's going to be okay, you know. But, you know, picked up her hand, and it was just floppy, you know what I mean? There was nothing there, and I checked for her pulse on her wrist, and no pulse, and I checked for a pulse in her neck, and no pulse, and I just started doing CPR to her. I just started pumping her chest, and, you know, kind of like the image of that will, I mean, like I'm suffering a lot with PTSD of it, and that image comes back, and, you know, I can still picture the feeling of pumping her chest, and just I just didn't know what to do, and you know, it's such a surreal moment to be in, and it almost feels like it didn't even really happen, like. And then some people who passed by, there's a couple of other cyclists and drivers that passed by while I was doing that, and we were waiting for an ambulance, and they got a defibrillator. And so I cut open her jersey, her cycling jersey, to stick the defibrillator patches on. But basically, all I revealed from cutting her jersey open was there was no skin there, and all, you know, down to like all the top of her chest just ripped off, and there was nowhere to stick to the patch, you know, from all the skin. And I think it was at that point I just gave up, and I just fell down on the ground outside the ditch and just fell into a heap and started just bawling, crying, and just screaming, and I don't know even what.
Of course.
I can't even remember that after that.
Did you call anybody at the time? Was there, were the first people you reached out to?
Yeah, I called my dad. He came down. The driver had called the ambulance. So they were on their way, and I called my dad, and he came down. And I mean, like, it's very hard for him also, because, like, you know, when you, like, we were together for 7.5 years, and that's a long time for people our age. Like, she was only 24, like, and, you know, she became like a daughter to my parents as well, like, you know, and it's obviously very hard for him to be there and see what he saw and everything as well, and seeing me in the way I was, and it's just kind of like, what do you do then? Like, you know what I mean? We just sat on the edge of the road, and we were there for a while, and the guards were asking me just who she is and her name and address and all that stuff they have to do, and then I didn't want to tell anybody. I didn't want to, you know, let anyone know until I'd broken the news to her parents, because I think they deserve to know, and I didn't want them hearing through some news article or through someone else. And so the first thing we did was just got in the car. I left my bike there, and we drove up to her parents' house, which was like half an hour away, and still in all, like, my cycling kit, and I had Gabriele's blood on my hands and arms and all down my legs as well, and just knocked on the door, and had to break the news to them as well that, you know, what happened, and that's horrible, you know. And I even get flashbacks of that drive, having to do that drive, and, you know, you're about to ruin their lives with the news, and, like, you know, it's, yeah, probably some of the hardest thing I had to do. And then we would have shared a lot of friends, so I just let our close friends know what happened, and I think a lot of them were just in disbelief, you know, like we're all the same age, we're all in our early 20s, and it's just not something you ever think happens, your friend dying. And I think it was just so hard for all of her friends to digest, and even having to call some of her best friends and tell them, and it's just, that was a really horrible time, those few days of just breaking the news. But I guess a lot of support came my way as well, and a lot of people reached out, and that was really, really good to have that support. But yeah, it was kind of crazy day, a few days.
Of course. Did you have any interaction with the driver?
Not that I can recall. It's all really a big blur. I was just so focused on Gabrielle. I couldn't even recall who passed by at this point. I was like, you're just tunnel vision, you know.
Everything's instinct at that stage.
Yeah, like, as soon as you realised that she was dead, you did everything you could to change that. I mean, like, there was nothing I could have done, but no.
The days and weeks, obviously, that followed that, I'd imagine, were something of a blur for you. Has it affected how you approach cycling or think about cycling? Because it's such a profound thing to happen to somebody, that you're out with your partner, and that something like that, an accident can occur that takes them away from you. Like, you clearly think there's an attitudinal problem as regards, there's not every driver, but certainly the driver base as a whole, and how they think about cyclists is it fraught one at this stage?
Yeah, like, to be honest, like, there's kind of always been a little bit of, you know, to and fro with cyclists and drivers on the roads, and I've been cycling for about 10 years now, and there's always been a small bit of it, you know what I mean? And, like, it's funny, like, even 10 years ago, like, sure, I was only a teenager, like, and you're still getting abuse. Like, it's funny, like, you know what I mean? But I think it's getting worse. It seems to be getting worse, and I would have said that before this accident. That's not just with kind of clouded judgment now. Like, it's, when it happens to me now, it sort of breaks my heart a little bit. It really gives me a horrible sinking feeling that, like, we can get hurled abuse when we're doing such an innocent activity. And it's just, it seems to be that there's this huge divide between cyclists and drivers don't seem to identify themselves in the same way as, say, like, I'm a cyclist, but I also drive a car. Like, I'm a driver and a cyclist, and I'm a human, you know, underneath it all, but they don't seem to see us as humans. And I just think it's a huge attitude issue, really, with drivers nowadays. And, you know, I spent 2 weeks cycling abroad in Gran Canaria, and it was a completely different experience. It was unbelievable, the courtesy, no one screaming at me, swerving, bumping. And I put up a tweet that said something along the lines of, it's an attitude issue from drivers, explaining that I just had a nice time in Gran Canaria. And the irony of all that tweet was that the comments I got replied to that were just confirmed what I thought, that there was an attitude issue, that really horrible comments.
The thing that seems to come back is from drivers will be that somehow it's the cyclists' fault that they're taking up road space. It almost seems like that's what it always comes across. It's like, pesky cyclists, etc., etc. And yet, Dublin city centre would be my main area of expertise in terms of where cyclists interact with the rest of the world. And somebody put up the other day online saying, has Dublin City Council ever met a cyclist? Because the provisions that are there for them in terms of cycle lanes, whether it's city centre, whether it's not, are poor to non-existent. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, like again, I've done a good bit of cycling in other countries, Belgium, Netherlands, France. Like it's a lot better infrastructure there for cycling. Like the cycle lanes are a lot better. You know, like I think cyclists get a lot of bad rep for sometimes choosing to not use cycle lanes, but it's kind of the only people that would judge them for that are the people that have never actually ridden a bike on that particular cycle lane, because there's some ones that are built so poorly, it's actually more dangerous to ride in the bike lane than it is outside of it. And again, I'll probably get a lot of people judge me for saying that, but until you sit on a bike and sit in there with a 40-foot lorry beside you, then you know what it's like. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's more safe to, you know, assert yourself on the road and take up the space there. But like for a lot of the time, Dublin City is like much improved. You know, especially in the last, I'd say 5 years, like cycling through the city, there's a lot more cycle lanes and they're a lot more maintained. So I think Dublin City, I don't think is a huge issue really.
Is there enough done from a policing standpoint to protect cyclists?
Interesting question. I guess they brought in the rule with the 1.5 meters overtaken, but I mean that's so hard to enforce, isn't it? You know, to give cyclists 1.5 meters space. You know, I've heard of many anecdotal stories of just, you know, people reporting things to the guards and the guards not really doing anything following up on it, be it video evidence of close passing or aggression. I don't know. Sometimes a lot of this thing is just dangerous overtaking too. But yeah, it's. I just wish that the attitude thing would drop, you know, and that we could all just like literally share the road, and like the time that you are held up by a cyclist really isn't that long, you know. Like you're never stuck behind a cyclist for minutes, you know, it's always seconds. It's, you know, it can be up to 20 seconds, but that's about it. And if you can give me 20 seconds and save my life, I think that's worth it, you know. Like if a person goes into a coffee shop and there's a bit more of a queue than they thought, they're not going to kick up a fuss and start throwing a tantrum and cutting people off in the coffee shop queue, are they? Like, and that could be an extra 2 minutes on their day, you know. But it's just when you're on the road, it seems that we have to be so precise to the second of when we arrive to our destination. And it really infuriates me that I'm just a 25-year-old out trying to enjoy my bike. You know what I mean? It's my way of de-stressing if I have a busy day. It's my thing. It's, you know, some people in Ireland play GAA, some people play soccer. Like, this is my GAA, you know what I mean? And, like, I don't know why people can't give up 10, 20 seconds of their day, and sometimes it's not even any time they're held up, just so I can have my sport, you know? At the end of the day, it's a sport. Like, Gabrielle was an athlete, you know, she was a top athlete. Her dedication to training and nutrition and everything was, you know, top tier. And it's unbelievable that people, when they're behind the wheel of a car, just don't seem to see that and just seem to think you're an inconvenience, that you're going to delay their journey home by 10 seconds, you know.
You said that the attitude towards cyclists has worsened in the last couple of years. Like, what do you put that down to, or how has that manifested itself?
I don't know. Maybe everyone's just a bit more stressed. I don't know the answer to it. Like, I just, you know, I can, like, you feel it. Like, you're out with, like, people. Even I was out a few weeks ago with a couple of friends, and we went to an area in Wicklow, and we said we're actually just never going to go back there, because the abuse and the dangerous driving, the speeding, the wrong side of the road, the overtaking into other cars and having to squeeze us in, it was so nervous, like you're almost shaking, and you're just like, that was a Sunday morning. Like, I just don't understand why there was such an inconvenience with it. Like, yeah, I don't know. People just seem to have hatred on cyclists because they see some of them breaking red lights and stuff in the city, and I don't know why it's fueled then when they're out in the country on a Sunday morning, but it does translate over to that. It's, yeah.
How long did it take you to get back on a bike after Gabrielle's passing?
I went out the next day because I knew if I didn't go out the next day, I'd never ever go out again. and I didn't enjoy the spin the next day.
Sure.
The irony of that spin was I went out with one of my best friends, and we were about half an hour into the spin, and someone was overtaking a cyclist the other direction, came head on towards us. We had to stop, or to brake, to get out of the way. And the two of us were just, in shock about that. And, I started crying. He had, it was just, it's horrible. But I got on the next day, the day after, and I just kept doing it because I just knew that if I didn't do it, I would have stopped, and she wouldn't want me to stop. And it's my thing, and if I didn't do it, it's my outlet, you know what I mean? And I don't know where I'd be, but it's been definitely tough. The last few months particularly have been really tough. I think maybe a little, the initial shock has stopped and it's kind of set in, and I am very nervous on the roads, and it doesn't help when, you get close past and you have people like just overtaking you and just turn left in front of you, and all these things that happen. But I guess it's the aggression that's the scariest part. It's scary knowing that level of aggression is behind of a vehicle which can kill you, a weapon. People are driving a weapon, and with that level of aggression, that's scary.
It comes at you physically and kind of verbally, I think, as well, with the way cyclists are kind of abused by motorists on occasion.
Yeah, it's quite often verbal, yeah. Like it's, and especially like the scariest place for a cyclist is reading the comment section online. And I would say this is going to be no different, and when you see that these people are writing these things online with these views, any RSA post that's been done about cycling safety, you go into the comment section, read it, and imagine as a cyclist you're reading this. It's a very scary place, knowing that people have these views are also the people behind the wheel of cars that are overtaking you and sharing the road with you, It's very scary. Like, the way I kind of like to think about it is like, if, with self-driving cars, when one day, hopefully, there'll be self-driving cars everywhere and there'll be no humans driving, cyclists will stop dying. And that's the truth. But if you did it the other way around and you had self-cycling cyclists, they'd still be knocked off their bike. And then that, to me, shows you where the problem is.
Are you being taken care of since then? Like, I know it's probably a bit of a personal question, but like, are you seeing counsellors, or are you being looked after in that respect, or are you just basically playing your own furrow?
Multiple counsellors,
yeah,
medical support, bit of friends and family. I mean, there's two ways that I'm suffering. Like I've, the whole PTSD, hallucinations, real vivid hallucinations, flashbacks, just heightened sense of anxiety, panic attacks, sleepless nights, that sort of stuff, which I'm seeking help for. But then also, if Gabrielle died in her sleep, I mean, she's a person I love, you know what I mean? And we had a future plan together. We talked about what we'd do, all the plans we had. I like the loss, her loss is, I think, losing your partner is the worst person you can lose. They're an extension of yourself, you know what I mean? Like, it's, like as I said, if she just passed away in her sleep peacefully, I'd be in a really bad way at the moment. So when you combine the two of those things,
How are her family doing?
They're okay. I mean, as good as you can be.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're finding it more difficult, and as I am, as the time goes on, like you look at the funeral and stuff, and you think like, no, the weeks after it, and like you think that's the worst it can be. Like I was 24, shouldering my partner's coffin, and the funeral there was almost something eerie about so many young people in a funeral. I've never seen anything like it, just full of young people. And like all that time passes, you think maybe it gets easier, but it just doesn't. You're just really left with that void in your life, and they're feeling the same as me, that it's just, I know they found Christmas really, really tough and New Year really tough, and it's having a huge burden on them.
If you had like a parting message for us this evening for motorists in particular, and how they relate to cyclists, what would that be?
I don't know. I just wish that people would view cyclists as more human, because that's all we are. We're all just humans, and you wouldn't give that the same level of aggression that I get on the roads, and that all the cyclists who are listening will agree with me get on the roads. You wouldn't just give that to people you're passing by on the street. And just be patient, be courteous. As like I said, you don't go down into a coffee shop kicking the place down, shouting, cutting in front of people in the line because there's an extra long queue. And it's the same thing. Like 10 seconds, 20 seconds onto your journey won't kill you, but it could kill me. So, yeah.
As regards your future, you're going down the medical professional route yourself, I believe?
Yeah, I'm studying physiotherapy, so I'm on hospital placement at the moment. So I don't know if you can tell, but I'm quite tired after that. Yeah.
Definitely. Have they already got you working the mental areas?
Yeah, well, it's not too bad, but just getting through it. I mean, it hasn't been easy going back to do that either. But
of course.
UCD offers some good supports for me, and just getting through it.
The strength that it would take for you to get back on a bike, I can't even begin to fathom the strength it would take for you to continue on. Living in a post-Gabrielle world is just utterly remarkable, and I wish you every continued bit of strength that you can possibly muster in someone, and gain from anybody else around you as well. And hopefully, if this does anything, it kind of opens people's eyes, I think, to the way cyclists are viewed by some people out there on the roads, and the dangers that can await them out there as well. Sean, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story and sharing Gabrielle's story this evening.
No, thank you very much. I think it's an important message, so thank you.